Hey, welcome. How's it going? Let me know everything's working. You can hear me, you can see me. We've got a decent internet connection today. Nothing's getting jammed. And welcome to today's Q&A. All right, cool. Daniel, good to see you. Why don't you hit the screen, what is it, the speaker request, and we can share the screen and we can get into some questions. All right, now there's a bit of a delay here, so just bear with us while this all kicks into gear. There he is. How are you, mate? I can't hear you though.
No, I didn't realize I had to press the buttons. I'm here now.
There we go. Gotcha. How are you?
I'm good. You?
Yeah, good, good.
Excellent.
It's good to share a screen with you finally.
Yeah, after all the attempts the other day. That was hilarious. I've not had that problem before of it just not
I don't
working.
know. I thought we were in the 21st century. I thought we had this thing called the internet and computers, but no, we were back in the dark ages there
Back
for a
in the
second.
dark ages, the digital dark ages.
Yeah.
But it's all good.
The dark entities don't want us to speak
It
clearly.
was a conspiracy.
No, good to have you on, man. Really
Thanks.
good
Great
to
to be
have
here.
you on.
Great to be here.
So I don't know if you've seen any of the other stuff, but with the Q and A's, it's not just about me being the source of information because I'm not. It's more about what questions can we come up with to get our mind working in directions maybe we haven't thought of, um, and just sort of provoke some new ideas, some new thoughts. And so, I'm happy to answer questions. I'm happy to ask questions. I'm happy for us to work on a question together. I think this is, if we can sort of get into this sort of bit of a dance, whoever's going to see this later on is, should get some benefit out of not just what we're talking about, but how we approach certain things. Yeah. So they can get a bit of an understanding on structures of the mind as well as just how we think as well.
So, giving them new synaptic networks the opportunity to be built in the mind of whoever's listening, whether
Yeah.
it's the topic of conversation or even how we approach everyday conversations from a new way. Give them the opportunity to look at standard things from a different angle and just start questioning and just using different parts of their mind, because as you and I both know, when we're using different parts of our mind, we can get a different experience. And if we're conscious in the direction that we point that experience, we can have new experiences in the direction of where we want our life to really go.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what about what we were considering talking about the other day, which is just how different things around us can give us signs and direction on new ways of being, how we can find these opportunities for new synaptic connections, and how we look at life, just in everyday life, movies that we watch, taking a different stance on looking at the news, for example, if we choose to do that, reframing everyday experiences, really finding the supernatural and the mystical in every aspect of our life if we choose to do so.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think one of the approaches I like to take in context of that is, um, at first when I first started out, it was all I was looking for answers out there. I was searching and where's the nugget? Where's the technique? How do I do this? How do I do that?
Hmm.
And after a while, it's sort of something happened that like the switch got flicked,
Hmm.
and the mirror. I saw the mirror, and I was like, well, what is this actually doing to my mind? You know, that was more important to me because, as you'd probably know, after a while, every book on your bookshelf seems to sort of say the same thing,
Hmm.
and everything you're searching on the internet is sort of giving you the same ideas,
Hmm.
and it's sort of hard to get outside of the mind that you're in that's searching. And so for me, when I was, um, especially when I was devouring lots and lots of books, I would read several at a time. Like,
Hmm.
obviously not at the same time, but
Yeah.
I would
Like,
have
in
books
a
all
week, you
over
might be
my
going through two
house.
or three books or whatever.
Yeah, and I was
Yeah.
paying more attention to the book and the images that were forming inside my mind that were being stimulated by, 4 or 5 books.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so, I'm sure you probably feel the same way when people say, well, how do you know this stuff? And you're sort of like, well, I'm not sure how to explain how I know it. It was sort of just evolved based on everything that I've gleaned,
Hmm.
you
And
know.
being open to allowing that to create this soup that comes out in your experience because it attaches itself to your experience. You connect your relationship with different information, with things that you experience in a day to day life, and that comes out. And it may sound like two people are saying two different things, but they're saying the same source material, but through their
Mm,
own experience, right?
yeah, yeah.
Mm-mm-mm.
And I guess the thing that I want people to get is that connection to that source within themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they become their own counsel, their own teacher, their own healer,
Mm-hmm.
their own guru, and and from there, um, like you were saying, you can start to interpret the same messages told to you in 1,000 different ways, and then
Mm-hmm.
you can tap into that or that mystical side of life where you know that something within you is constantly communicating with you.
Mm-mm-mm-mm. I mean, it's really interesting just on that whole thing of remembering that you are the healer, you are the guru, as opposed to looking outside of yourself. Because in my own work, that's one of the things I really encourage people to do, which is to make those micro shifts into stepping into their own power. With the Beyond Intention paradigm, step one is accept, and that is really accepting that I drove me here because everything that's unfolded is a result of what I've created, but then it's everything that's coming forward is what I create. Now,
Mm.
if you're giving away your power to an outside guru, you're giving your power away to a god, the devil, the universe, or any other name for any excuse that we give outside of ourselves for our creative power, then you're giving away essentially the energy and that power that you have to create the life that you want.
Mm.
And then what happens is that people turn around later and they say, oh, see, the devil, that's why the universe wanted something else for me. But you haven't even set a clear intention on what you wanted in the first place.
Mm.
So people lose sight of the fact that our reality unfolds in relation to our thoughts and the requests that we make of life in line with those thoughts. But that choice can be conscious or subconscious. And as many, of science is teaching us, whether it's Bruce Lipton, Joe Dispenza talks about it as one other thought leaders, they show us that as much as 95% of our day is spent running on a subconscious program.
Mm.
Now, given that as much of 70% of that is being given to us by the people, that means that we want the life that we want, but we aren't actually in the driver's seat of what's creating the outcomes that form the life experiences that form the life that we're living. So when we're not setting a clear intention of what we want in our lives, we're surrendering it not to these outside forces that we think we are, whether it's God, devil, whatever. We're actually just surrendering it to the subconscious programs. So
Simple as that.
we're still making the choice.
Yeah.
I had this. So I've got this game that a friend of mine plays, where with her cousin, they take turns setting an object that they're going to manifest. And it could be something silly like pink candy floss or blue candy floss or whatever. And then they take a picture of it and they just go back and forth, setting this thing between each other. And I'm part of a couple of groups on Facebook, and there's one particular group that I've recently been made a moderator of. And I thought, you know what? I really want to give more people the chance to play this game because it's a fun way to build that manifesting muscle and to step into this thing again, building that new synaptic network, that new way of doing things where instead of just surrendering it every day or regularly, we're just getting playful with silly little things that we're calling in. So we're stepping into the seat of the creator. And this guy went off on me. He's like, oh, you know, we can't do that. He's like, that if we all ask for the same thing, then the universe is going to collapse.
It's going to run out.
He's like, and at the end of the day, it's dangerous to give people this power without teaching them how to use it. And he had like all of these excuses. And I respect his opinion, because at the end of the day, for anybody to be wrong, nobody can be right. So because that's his opinion, then that's real, because that's his reality. As you know, his belief systems form his reality. So that's true for him. It's not true for me because I don't stick to that. But the fact is that natural law says, A, there's an abundance of everything, and B, anything that we ask for, we get, whether we ask for it consciously or subconsciously. But it was really fascinating to watch the type of really clever excuses even people that know the information will make to not be in the driver's seat of their life. Freaking fascinating.
I hear that a lot, and I think part of it is the payoff that you get for maintaining the habits that you've locked in, you know, and not changing. It's like, man, if I change, then I'm not going to get my emotional addictions met.
And I can't make the same excuses. I can't blame God.
That's right. And if you and all these people are playing this manifesting game and they're doing it really easily and effortlessly and it's fun, and I'm not, there must be something I'm not doing right, and I can't sit in my authority throne and, you know, waffle on and all that sort of stuff.
And the thing is, Brett, is like, I completely get where the guy was coming from. And I was trying to say to him, you're right for you, but it's not really fair to have some, I mean, if I'm giving my opinion, I'm saying, hey, this is my opinion, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, oh, this is doomed to fail and all this stuff. And I was like, I just politely said, you know what? I picked up on the points I agreed with, and I didn't disagree with him on any points. All I said is natural law is that every thought that we have, and this is ancient science, ancient wisdom, quantum physics is now telling us exactly the same thing. Life is energy. Everything that we consider to be physical is just energy, and all of that responds to the observations we make, whether that's a physical observation that we make, which always starts with a thought anyway. So our thoughts literally collapse matter into form in alignment with our belief systems about what can show up, and our belief systems about how and when those things show up. So when we start talking about the universe, I'm a co-creator with the universe and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's great. But you have to remember that there's no separation between you and that universe, because you're still the same energy. You're still the same consciousness that's just separated itself for the purpose of exploring and enjoying and understanding different angles of life through your experience on multiple dimensions. One of the funkiest things, and I'm sure that you really appreciate this most, and it's one that I've really been toying with, is that because of quantum, really, all of us are experiencing every single variation and possibility in different quantum potentials at the same quantum now. And this really gives us the power to almost let go of this thing of separation, because there's a quantum potential where this conversation's flipped and you're me and I'm you. There's a quantum potential where I'm the computer and you're the clock right next to me. So when we step into this knowledge of not what something, this isn't woo-woo, you know, hibbity-gibbity, hippie nonsense. This is hard science. Every single possibility that we can think of or not think of is happening right now in this moment as another quantum potential. So when I think like that, then how can I hate people? Because I'm only hating myself.
There's only you here.
There's only me here. Just because I am not separate to you. We're all this big primordial gloop expressing itself in different quantum potentials in different dimensions. And this is just the one I'm consciously experiencing at this moment. But But the crazy thing is, in another quantum potential, I'm having the exact same experience, the exact same experience. So he can be right, I can be right. He could be wrong, I could be wrong, because there is a quantum potential where he's right and I'm wrong. So, and it's just easy to let go, I think, when you think of things like that.
Well, it's Alan Watts. Oh, hang on, I'm getting some feedback. I'll just turn this volume down. Alan Watts was saying that, I can't remember the quote exactly, but it's something like, when you look at the waves in the ocean, you see many waves, but it's all the ocean.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And so it sort of astounds me, because my approach, my perception is sort of flipped to the general population out there. I think the general population, talking who are asleep, haven't woken up, are seeing themselves as waves and trying to connect with the ocean, not realizing they're already the ocean, just being expressed as a wave, right? And then they're trying to make the connection with third dimensional Newtonian physics and science, and the old school science, to the quantum physics and the new science models, and trying to go, well, how do I get from here to there? And it's like, no, you're already there.
Yeah.
You just think you're here. And if you could just start there and work from there, then it would all make more sense. You start off with the key, and all the encryption makes a lot more sense.
Exactly.
If you're trying to decode the encrypted information without the key, then good luck,
But this is when I love that. One of the reasons why we found it so difficult to accept ancient wisdom is because it is so simple.
Yeah.
As above, so below, as within, so without. So what's inside is outside. The outer world is a reflection of the inner world. Now, it appears that we've needed to come all this way into complicated science to come right back to this simple thing that we're all one. We're all the very same thing, manifesting itself at different vibrational frequencies. And we can sit and talk about the science as much as we want. We can bring on the greatest minds from Harvard and Oxford and Cambridge and all these fancy institutions. But when we take it back down to its simplest form, it really is very simple. Everything that we're experiencing is the same thing, vibrating at different frequencies. And us, as an expression of that consciousness, are calling in different experiences based on our thoughts. Simple. There is no outside force conspiring against you, even in a positive way. It is just you, but a higher vibrational frequency of yourself. And the higher vibrational frequency just means that you're connecting back to that singularity of the essential essence that we all are, which is the same thing vibrating at different frequencies. And that's it. That's it.
Yep. We can go home now. That's
I am home. I am home. Yeah, that was great. But yeah, I love the simplicity. I was speaking to a good friend of mine earlier today. We were just having a business call about something. And he reminded me that complexity is the enemy of execution. And so often we create these complexities in things, again, perhaps on some level because we want the payoff, whether it's the payoff of saying, look how clever I am, look what I've come up with, or look how clever I am, look what I deciphered. And in some instances, look how complicated it is. Of course, I can't execute it. Of course, my life's going to be like this. How am I going to get these high-level concepts? And how am I going to digest these high-level concepts? I'm doomed, And then the excuse engine starts. It's really just so simple. But it's almost that we need this complexity in order to validate the truth of it. Because when we see something that's so simple, we're like, if it's so simple, how can it be true? It has to be complicated to be true, which isn't even the case.
Yeah, it's like, no, it can't be that simple, and it can't be that big,
I can't be that powerful.
Yeah, and how could it possibly be? Yeah, it's interesting when we start to take things from the perspective that you're already there, like you're already it.
Yes.
And that you're experiencing, because people are so caught up in survival and manifesting money and houses and relationships and, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, to that higher self, that higher consciousness, he doesn't really care, because it's like, what, you want me to manifest another house? Can't you see all the houses? Every street you walk down, there's houses there, and there's parts of you living in those houses. So,
Yeah.
like, you want another house? Come on, let's do something more interesting. Um, and so, some of the I'm sure you've had this with people who you're working with. They're like, "Oh, my manifestations aren't working,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, well, maybe your higher consciousness doesn't give a shit about your manifestation. Maybe it wants to express something new that you
That's something
haven't
more
done
interesting.
before.
And they lose sight of the fact that even the high consciousness is not separate from them. It's still them. It's just another level of themselves that's asking for something more. I mean, in new agey type talk, we can say the soul wants a different expression. I was playing with this idea of the excuse engine the other day and working with clients on removing the level of excuses. And I said, okay, so we've got the soul level, or like the higher level of self, like the singularity element of self, the subconscious and the physical. And yeah, there'll be those instances when, and it's still us. And I'm very careful not to allow people to use this as an excuse for looking outside of themselves. It's still you, but there's a level of you that wants the greatest expression. It wants the adventure. It doesn't want to come to the fairground and just sit on the sideline watching all the rides. It wants to get on different rides. It's like, I want to go on the merry-go-round. I want to go on the loop-de-loop. I want to go on these different things. And sometimes when that urge is strong enough, then we will end up finding ourselves pulled energetically to these experiences which are more meaningful at the soul level, but it's not outside of you. That's the thing that I'm always really hot on people. It's like, yeah, my higher self or the universe, however you want to label this outside force, wants a greater expression. Like you said, it wants the adventure. It wants something different. It doesn't want another house. It wants to see what it's like to be on a boat on the ocean, because it wants to express itself and have all of these experiences. But it's still, whichever level, once it comes into your awareness, you still have the power of choice, even if it's a soul level. But it just requires a level of awareness and a level of almost self-evolution to have that, to embrace that power on all levels, to actually dictate your experience and have fun and play with it.
Yeah, I think that's a key, expressing it on all levels, not just, the social conscious accepted level. We had a Q&A the other day, and the topic of sex came up. And it's like, when you're moving your energy around, should you keep it inside your body? Should you express it? Is it okay to express it? Is it, am I hurting myself keeping it inside? There's a lot of confusion there, and because typically in most circles, especially you get into the religious side of things, sex is bad and it's shameful and there's judgment around it. And it's just, it throws a lot of confusion in there. And so, we had a good talk about that. But I mean, while you're here, what's your take on that topic? Because I think that's, before you answer, I think it's so general, because everybody here is a result of someone having sex, right? That's just pure and simple. So for you to actually be here to be confused about whether it's okay or not, you're a result of it, right?
I mean, what's really, really fascinating is that I was having a conversation with a really good friend of mine, Chris Kelka, on Thursday about this topic. Our men's group was speaking about this the other day, this whole thing, suppressing energy. And him and his wife, Mina, they do a lot of coaching on relationship. Sex comes into that as well. But they also talk about relationship between money and just relationship as an energy and balancing the way we relate to things energetically, whether it's people, places, or things. And they've got some really great work. And one thing that we're talking about is this whole thing of suppression of energy, and the fact that sexual energy is a creative energy. That's literally what it is. And this thing that we call sex energy is just a creative energy, which has a level of payoff. Part of the payoff of this flow of energy is the hormones and stuff that are associated with joyful sexual experience.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're playing with this energy and we're enjoying its movement, the payoffs emotionally and in the feeling have this really nice thing. But then the same way when you go to the gym, there's some really nice hormones that come off.
Yeah.
If you're training in a way that's in alignment with how you experience pleasure, the same way that two people can have the same, or two couples can have the exact same sexual experience, and one couple will have a greater payoff than the other, because for one, that same experience has a different alignment and it has a different alignment in terms of their enjoyment of the experience. So, for example, if there's a couple that enjoy S&M, a couple that enjoys sweet, soft lovemaking, they're not going to have the same payoff, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, regardless of that, there is a payoff, but it is just energy moving. Everything else around it is like a story that we've been given by society. Like you said, religion has this whole thing of suppressing it because people lose sight of the fact that the word religion comes from the Latin word ligare, which is control. Organized religion is man's choice to take something beautiful, which is a relationship with the divine, and use it as a system of control. That doesn't mean that everybody that's religious is bad, or even that all religious leaders are bad. That's where it came from, but anything that comes from a bad place can still have a positive use, because some religious people are some of the nicest people because of their religion, and some of the worst people because of their religion. So it's not a general thing we can do.
Yeah.
But for me, sex energy is an energy. Suppression of it is no good, but it doesn't have to be channeled in a destructive way. This whole thing of, if I hold it in, is it bad? If you're suppressing it, it's bad. If you're holding it in and transmuting it into something else, you can take the energy and transmute it into a mystical experience, because it's creative energy. You can take the energy and channel it into creative expression if you channel it. But it's important for people to know that all energy movement requires training in how to move it, whether it's training by experience or training because you've gone in front of a guru of some sort. Anyone that thinks suppression of, or that thinks holding a sexual energy is bad, needs to try tantric sex, because that's some dope shit, and that's all about taking the energy and then expressing how you release it in. But I think it shouldn't be expressed, but it should be respected, as all energy should be. And I think that when you're aware of the power of all forms of energy, not just sex, when you're in an experience when it involves someone else, there should be a level of respect, understanding, openness, and love should be there as well, in any form of energy, whether it's energy of a power that you have as a leader, which doesn't, whether it's being responsible for someone, whether it's even an angry energy. That's not bad. It's still energy. It just needs to be transmuted in a constructive, productive, growth and expansive way. And that's how I sit, particularly on the question of sex and sex energy.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great way of. It's very similar to the approach that we took, but I like the way you express that, and I think that's one of the main things that I sort of cringe at with people getting involved in all this, is that they're trying to avoid certain things that they're labeling as good or bad, and go towards certain things that they're labeling as good or bad based on subconscious programming that they've never checked, and they don't even know how it got there.
Exactly.
And so, like you were saying with anger, this is a raw energy. It's just energy, but it's unrefined.
Exactly.
It's like a fuel, right?
Exactly.
Now we're going to electric vehicles and a very clean energy, which is great for everybody. But I remember speaking to an old naval officer at one of the old museum, those ships they have in the harbors, they're an old museum. And he would talk to us about the fuel they use was this unrefined, messy, like almost oil crude, like it was a byproduct after they got the petrol out,
LPFO.
And they would use that and they would have to heat it up because it was like a treacle and it would burn this black thing. But that was the fuel they used to push these battleships around. And so, that lower center energy, it's not good or bad. It's just it's just maybe less refined than maybe a heart-centered energy.
Exactly.
But I think, like you were saying, through training, the aim should be to be able to use any energy from anywhere and transmute it into anything.
Exactly.
And not just upwards, but sometimes downwards too, because sometimes, like you would know this, you're talking to someone, you've got this high frequency information coming through, it hits you, you understand it perfectly, you know what you're talking about, you've experienced this, it's your life, it's your normal, right? It's
Exactly.
just like no big deal for you.
Exactly.
And then they look at you like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you digest that for me into something less refined, less, potent? Because it's just rocking my world, and sparks are shooting out of my ears, and my eyes are crossing
Exactly.
involuntarily.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because
So, sorry.
we're speaking S&M and they need sweet love making, basically.
Yeah, and actually, I had a really this is a little on the side note here. I had a really interesting conversation because I think these general abstract areas that there's a lot of confusion around because everyone's looking for this tool in the high, the high um, mystical experience, and I think they're really easy to get to when all the lower stuff is sorted out and you're clean and unhooked from all these confusing patterns. And we were talking about kink and what kink was. And I had a perception of what I thought kink was. And then when I actually spoke to someone who had experience in a relationship where someone had a kink, it was more like, oh no, well, unless this sequence of events played out, they couldn't become aroused sexually and have that pleasurable experience through sex that we were talking about, where they feel connected. Anything other than going through this sequence brought up a really bad experience for them. And I thought, whoa, that's a whole different perspective. I'd never thought about it like that. For me, I thought kink was like, once you get really adventurous, then you get into all that stuff. But it was the other way around. It was like,
this is their part.
Happened for them to have a normal sexual experience. And so my whole perception on that, what I thought kink was, changed completely. And of course, personally it freed me up. I thought, well, I'm pretty normal then, I'm pretty balanced in that area, right? And so I think these topics, these taboo topics, and we'll tie this one off because we don't want to be talking sex all night, but I think talking about these taboo areas are really useful because it sort of shines light in the darkened room.
Of course.
And, until you do that, you can imagine all sorts of monsters and terrible things in there.
Yeah.
But then when you actually turn the light on, it could be a storehouse with all these great tools in there and great experiences or vehicles to take you to new places in your conscious awareness.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, that was definitely, and if you can clean up, like we were saying with that sexual energy, it's very raw and potent. And, if you know how to transmute that through, like you said, Tantra or Kama Sutra, that's a beautiful system to move that energy and refine it. Then, we can put all the misconceptions about shame and
exactly
judgment aside, and all this stuff that's coming up in the media, with the survivors of sexual assault and all that. Hopefully, if we shine the light in there, we can avoid a lot of these experiences happening in the future.
I agree. And I think it's really important for people to remember that we need to stop forming our basis of what's okay and what's right based on other people's opinions.
Yes.
Based on other people's beliefs, what's good or right. I mean, these people that have a need to go through certain sequences of certain experiences in order to have what society says is a normal sexual experience, that's your journey.
Yeah.
It's about, again, having a respectful, open dialogue with those people that you're engaging with in those activities so that everybody's happy and everybody's comfortable. There are 7 billion people in the world. Your tribe is there.
Yeah.
You have your tribe. And I think people need to stop. I mean, I have this real issue with people that have this issue with that person's gay or that person's gay. I really have no interest in where someone else is putting their penis unless they're trying to put it in me. In which case, then it becomes my problem. Like, other than that, why are you so interested in where someone else is putting their body parts?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like live and let live, So often we give our power away by being so tied up in what other people are doing in their lives and with their energy and with their decisions that we lose sight of that energy should be spent on ourselves and sorting our own life out. And often we will find a lot of the people that spend so much time caring about what other people are doing, putting their nose into other people's business and having opinions and stories about other people's business, they're generally just unhappy with their own life. And they're not going to get happy with their own life because all of the energy that they could be using to create a life that they are happy with is being spent looking at other people's lives and judging them and all this absolute crap and poppycock. So.
Yeah. And it's, I think moving out of the topic of sex and just generalizing it, extrapolating it further into just people's perceptions and ways of thinking, like there's plenty of room for everyone to think however they like, if it's not hurting anyone and if everyone's, consensual in participating with that mindset or not. There's so much thought going into the negative spiral because of conflicting ideas rather than just go, okay, that's cool. Is there something in that for me? If there isn't, just move on.
Exactly.
I remember watching Ricky Gervais. Like people, flaming him on Twitter, and it's like, if you don't like my jokes, just
don't
move on. It's like someone, you post free guitar lessons and someone rings you and goes, I don't want guitar lessons. It's like, all right, it's not for you. It's okay. You don't have to like the guitar.
It's just like trolls that literally go out of their way to follow people that they don't like, to tell them that they don't like them. There are 6 billion people in the world, millions of people on Twitter. Go and look at pages that you do. Go and find jokes that you do like and read those jokes.
Yeah. I just
And-
think by the time they took to actually do that, they could have been doing something fun, interesting.
Oh, God. It's like, I do understand the whole thing. I mean, I studied philosophy and I studied politics or whatever. So I understand that there's an element of social contract that says, we do have some kind of obligation to voice our discontent or whatever at different people's things. I mean, I'm a person of color. If people are out there being, blatantly racist or whatever in their humor, then I do have a moral obligation to voice that, hey, this isn't really cool or whatever. But I'm not going to follow you to read your content to tell you that it's not cool. And also, a lot of the time, we have to remember that other people's stories are their stories, right? So if someone has a story, it's not my job to change their story. That's not my job. It's not my job to help someone grow up or help someone be a decent human being. It's not my job to be the humor police and follow people's accounts and tell them that they're not funny. And it's especially not my job to take my energy that's mine to create my life and to create my happiness, to pollute it with these things that I don't agree with or don't like, and then spend all my time and energy telling them that I don't like it. And the thing is, a lot of people are saying these things about things that they've polluted their own environment with. It's different if someone comes to me and says, hey, I've got a joke about people with glasses, you're from another planet, dude, because you've got glasses. then I can say, hey man, that's not really that funny. I can take my glasses off, F you, whatever. That's one thing. But me going around looking for people telling jokes,
Oh, look, there's a guy with glasses.
I must voice my discontent and follow him and do it every day. It's like, take your energy and do something more self, like you said before. Like, my rule is this: when I am faced with a choice or bringing something into my environment, I ask, does it bring me joy? Yes. Does it do harm? Yes. Then I don't do it. Does it do harm? No. Then I do it. Does it bring me joy? No. Then I don't freaking do it.
It's pretty simple stuff.
Simple stuff, man. Really
and the genius is that it's so simple. The really good stuff is the simplest.
Yeah.
You look at all these beautifully engineered designs, all these innovations that really took the world by storm. They're so simple. I remember, what was that not documentary, the film about Steve Jobs with Michael
Fassbender.
Yeah. And the guy said, why did you kill the idea of the stylus, on the Palm Pilot? He says, because if you're holding the one stylus, you can't use the 5 that are already on your hand. And it's just so simple. Like the thinking is a next level thinking. And, I've heard some of your videos on Facebook, and, you're always throwing all these great techniques out. But I think the thing that most people miss is that you're working with your mind and your energy all the time. And you're not just, going, reaction to my environment and here's the tool for that. You're going, okay, well, what's going on here? What's happening inside? What's happening outside? How am I creating this? How am I not creating what I want to create? Simple. What's the tool that I need for that? Do I have the tool? Do I need to make a tool?
Or do I need to go and learn a tool? Like, do I need to get a coach? Do I need to go and do a course, go and read a book, and then apply it? Like you said, very simple.
Yeah. And I remember a friend of mine who I did years of, we trained together. We were training partners for years in this type of area when, you just wouldn't talk about it, because if you did at a party, you were like that guy in the corner that no one wanted to talk to, right?
He's talking about aliens. He's talking about aliens.
Quantum. Oh God, what's he saying? Anyway, yeah. So we went through that phase. That was fun. Thank God we matured past there.
Yeah.
But he was at the airport coming to Sydney to visit, and he said, oh, man, you should have seen these people in the queue. They were getting all irate because the plane was delayed 15 minutes, and just they were going on and on and on and really having a meltdown. And he's pretty direct, and he doesn't mince words. He says, I'm just thinking, why don't you just do something with your freaking mind in the 15 minutes? Work out how maybe not to get so uptight about this. You've got 15 minutes of nothing to do. Might as well go inside and do something with it.
Exactly.
And so, I do that a lot for myself, and I see you're like that as well. And there's a few people that we're starting to connect to now that are more interested in what's going on inside than they are outside. And when they start to work on that, obviously the outside shifts and flux and changes around them.
Exactly.
They start to tap into what the reality of their world is. It's a reflection of what's going on inside them. And it's really good. It's really good to see, because people like that aren't going, why isn't this tool working? I want my money back. I'm wasting my time with listening to you. It's like, that's the laughter of recognition, people.
Yeah, that's a lot of recognition. Oh God.
Yeah, because it's still this magic pill mentality.
Yes.
It's like, okay, I'm not taking Farmer anymore. I'm taking Dan now. And if it doesn't work, it's Dan's fault,
It's Dad's fault.
right?
This whole
And
evolution of blame.
yeah, and it's like, no, we're all doing this together. We're
Mhm.
all working this out together, and some are really into it, and some are down the track, in all these great rabbit holes and experiencing all these cool things, and they can give you the directions and the um, the pins,
Mhm.
to all these little where they all are, and you can go experience it yourself.
Mhm.
Um, but if you're just sitting back expecting to switch, one pill for another, then you
You're not going to
might as
see
well,
change.
not turn up at all.
Yeah, it's just people just looking for what's today's new excuse for me not to be able to be responsible for my own life. What's
Mm,
today's new excuse? Who am I going to blame today? And it's again, it comes down to this whole subconscious program. And I don't blame people. I mean, we joke and we jest about this, but at the end of the day, a lot of people, it's not been brought into their awareness just
yeah,
how much power they have to create their own life.
yeah,
And when it is brought into their awareness, they've spent 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years being trained not to see this is the way of doing things.
yeah.
And I always use this on my podcast, I always say, if you're only 15 years old, you've spent 15 years learning to do things the way you've been doing them today. So it may take a little bit of conscious effort on your part, making conscious choices in a new way, building those new neural pathways to do things differently over a period of time. Think about it. We go to school. I mean, in the UK, you start schooling from kindergarten, like you could be 3 or 4 years old. From three right through to the age of sort of 17, you have to obey the teacher. You have to look to the teacher for everything. We're not taught independent thought. We're taught to follow a textbook and do things that way. Then if you go away to college stroke university, then you spend another 3 4 years. I suppose university stroke college, you get a bit of independence in terms of your thinking. You are taught to think a bit more for yourself. But then we're taught that we're doing that just to get grades so that we can go and get a job where we're then
Mm,
dependent on a paycheck. And then we spend the rest of our life doing that. We never really, society isn't naturally built for us to have any sort of independence of mind, spirit, and energy. And so when people do fall into these traps of looking for the next pill, I get it.
mm,
But dude, it's in your awareness now.
yeah, yeah,
You're gonna have to start doing things differently. What's the you can't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. But in the same breath, you can't do things differently and they still remain the same. So yeah, you've been offered this new pill or whatever. But when people like yourself, myself, and some other people, they're out here encouraging people to do things differently, to step into the power that's available to them, to enjoy and maximize the benefits of this independence that's available to them. You have to do the thing yourself of making those consistent choices in the direction of this new thing that you want for yourself. Just blaming people, you're just doing it the same.
mm,
Putting a different hat on it, it's still the same mannequin. Life's not going to be different by you just putting a different t-shirt on it or putting in a different package. What's it the Bible says? You can't put new wine in old caskets, right?
mm.
You need new wine and new caskets, new way of thinking and new way of doing.
Yeah, it to me it all comes down to training. It's infinite. There's no end to it, and
Mm-hmm.
we're constantly training because we enjoy training.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result, you get all these cool and crazy results.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I see a lot though is people jumping in and expecting to go from beginner to pro, like this is the quick fix. Like I've been struggling and I haven't been getting the results, and now I'm going to do this new technique, and that's going to take me to pro level straight away. And I remember watching an interview with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he says, they're saying like, "What advice do you have?" And he's saying, "We do this exercise, that exercise," and he said, and of course, if you're not doing between 1 or 200 crunches a day, then
Mm-hmm.
forget about it. Go
Mm-hmm.
home. And this guy, he knows what he's talking about. He was 8 times Mr.
Mr.
Olympia,
Universe.
and
Yeah, yeah.
but the thing people don't really I mean, we know because it presupposes that it's there, but what we don't realize is he started when he was 15.
Mm-hmm.
He was training all that time
Mm-hmm.
before he hit Mr. Olympia the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, at that level, 1 and 200 crunches a day is just your standard. It's like breakfast,
Yeah.
right? But I'm sure he didn't start off at 15 doing 100 sit-ups a day.
Probably started on 10 at a time and
Ex-
built that up.
exactly, exactly. And so, I think the other part is, it's kind of like this CrossFit I don't know if but back home in Australia, CrossFit is like, it's the shit, and go hard or go home, and everyone's like pounding you, and it's
Yeah.
very violent on the body and the psyche, right? It's like, why am I doing this? This is not fun.
I've heard about CrossFit, but I've not dared to try. Just
Yeah, I'm sure it's great, if you're into it and if you love that sort of thing. It's a bit like, it's like going back to the topic of kink, if it's you like getting beaten up verbally, in the gym, you get pleasure out of that. You go for it, but for me, I like to do things a little bit more calmly.
Mm.
But yeah, it's just this. I see one of the biggest problems I see is people going really hard and deep into this stuff and then freaking themselves out and sort of crashing and burning and then never coming back ever again.
And not making any progress.
Yes. Yeah, and they're worse off than when they came in.
Oh my God. I have this this whole thing I talk a lot about, and maybe there's some fancy word someone used at some point, but I call it micro shifts. And the basic principle is this: there are some people, there is going to be a proportion of the environment, of the population, sorry, that can do sort of the Tony Robbins supermassive change in one day. And maybe there's a higher percentage that have the capacity, and with the right training and coaching, they can get there. But everybody can make baby steps. There will be some people that you give them like a crash course in a week, and maybe they can do the 100 crunches after a week. But everybody can increase their crunches by 5 crunches extra every week over a period of a year, building up their body's strength to be able to do that. And a lot of people end up self-sabotaging by getting to a point where they make no progress because they try to make these massive big leaps. I say this with my clients all the time. I never demand a big thing with them in one go. I always say, what tiny shift can we make for this week? Okay, maybe this week it's just going to be, we're just going to make sure that we consistently write one thing in our journal every day. And not 10 pages, just today I'm grateful for one thing, and do that every day. And then you build up that habit of doing it and build up that habit of doing it. And I think they say it's 67 or 68 days of doing something consistently, you build the habit. Now, if you give yourself a series of small things that you're doing once every week, or, a couple of times a week, or every 10 days you do 2 new things, at the end of the year, you can have realistically have 100 new positive habits. Now, those 100 positive habits after a year might not be the one massive thing that you wanted to get, but the statistical probability that you're going to successfully integrate those 100 new habits done with micro shifts, small thing at a time, much higher than you trying to do one thing, overloading yourself, having all the anxiety, oh my God, it's too big, and failing, because often when we're trying to do new things, we will fail. That's a natural course of life, that when you're trying to do something new, you won't quite make it at once. And if you don't have the resilience, which most people don't have, and that's not a bad thing, it's just most people don't have that resilience, then again, like you said, you end up worse off than when you started, not making any progress at all, but just end up, oh, it doesn't work, I tried to be happy, but the universe wants me to be miserable. It's my star side. It's just Mercury's in retrograde. I should have waited till next week.
I knew it wasn't going to work. I just knew it. See how much energy I'm putting towards it? Of course it's not going to work.
Oh, God.
I used to know this guy that we worked, it was when I was really young, we had this it wasn't a crappy job. Like it was good for the time, but it wasn't the job you stay with.
Yeah.
And so we would do maintenance on the freeway. We'd cut the lawns and we'd clean the garbage and remove obstacles and hazards and all that sort of stuff. And it wasn't a hard job. Like it was it was a simple job. You're outside, you go at your own pace. It's so safety based that no one wanted you to rush just in case you hurt yourself because you're dealing with traffic and all that. You have your goals, but if you didn't hit them, then you just come back next day, and it's all government funded, so they don't want you to work too hard too quickly, and they've got to get the budget in for next year, so they get the same money for next year, all that sort of stuff. But he would spend more time working on how not to do the work and not get caught than just doing the work. I remember he was like, oh, if we do this and we do that and we make an appearance over there like it's done, and then we can spend another half hour doing nothing over here. And it's like, you know what? Why don't we just go and do the job? And it's probably a lot easier. I'm going to spend a lot less energy and I'm going to stress out a lot less just doing it.
God.
And then we don't have to worry about anyone looking over our shoulder.
Yeah.
And by that time, if we just get into it, time will flash by and it'll be over and we can go home. Right? And he's like, yes, I suppose we could do that. He had a real hard time with just doing the work.
We spend so much time. We divert so much energy into all these bullshit things, thinking about what other people are doing, who's having sex with who, what gender that person is, what religion that person is, this, that, how can I get out of it? And all the energy that we expend into avoiding unhappiness or to talking about unhappiness. If we just diverted 10% of the energy into making conscious, consistent choices in line with a life that we actually want, we wouldn't have all these things to be upset about. We'd be so busy enjoying the life that we had that we wouldn't have time and energy to think about bloody other people anyway. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so much energy wasted. I wouldn't say wasted, just misused. I would say misused.
Directed to replace other than where it can be most effective.
Yeah. Or not just most effective, just, not destructive,
Yeah.
Yeah, because the other, like you mentioned earlier, it's an abundant universe.
Yeah.
So it's not like if I think in opposition to what I don't want, I'll get that. It's you're thinking in, whether you're thinking opposition to or towards something, it's going towards that thing.
Yeah, as long as there's a thought about it, and that's what's showing up for you.
Yeah. And so one of the techniques that I think is really valuable is just coming back to center and to neutral, finding neutral, learning how to stop. Stop the momentum. You go, okay, check where you are on the map. You go, all right, if I keep going in that direction, over minutes, hours, days, months, it's going to lead me there. Or if I just make this tiny micro adjustment now, over time, I'll end up over there. Like
exactly,
it's really basic stuff, and so simple. It's elusively obvious.
It's deceptively simple.
Yeah.
I love Tony Robbins' analogy. When it says, if a plane, I don't remember the cities, but you get the drift anyway. If a plane's taking off from London and it's meant to go to New York, if it's off by 2 degrees at the point of taking off, then it ends up in Buenos Aires. Now, when you apply that positively by making 1 or 2 degree changes in the direction of what you want, even if you don't make any other changes, but you just consistently stick with that one tiny change, your life has to show up differently. It's the law. It has to show up differently.
And can I just add a little thing in there that I found was really valuable along that path, is to factor in the slide back and factor in the failure, factor in that you're going to fall over and drop the ball. Like consistently doesn't mean I'm going to start and I'm going to walk in that direction and never stop until I get there. It's like you're going to stop, you're going to lose your way, you're going to fall off track, you're going to go back to the bad habit, but consistently just go start again.
That's it. Sticking with it.
Yeah.
Sticking with it when you have the slide backs. Because there's the whole thing of contrast, right? The whole thing of texture, of contrast, of variance, of this adventure that, you know, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you won't really feel like doing much. I did a video about this. I said just honoring what your body feels like. You know, it's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to let that continue. Keep checking in with yourself. There's days when I get up and I'm like, I don't really feel like doing 2 hours of meditation today. I don't not do anything. I check in. I say, okay, Dan, can we at least micro shift and do 10 minutes for now? Yeah, we can do 10 minutes, you know. I don't feel like doing 2 hours. I don't feel like, I mean, even with like people that are doing like gyms and exercise and training, I don't really feel like going to the gym today. Now, today my body needs rest isn't the same as I'm taking a week off and eat McDonald's every day for breakfast. Yeah. That's not the same thing, but it's checking back in and saying, okay, we don't feel like it today. Is there a reason why? Maybe my body needs a bit of rest. Check in later in the day. Do we still feel the same? We have some rest. The next morning, how do I feel? Check in and honestly say, is it that I need some rest or is it that I'm self-sabotaging? And that's the whole thing of a dance of the awareness of self, but honoring the fact that there will be texture. There'll be days when you go to the gym and you maybe do something a bit different, or you're trying to build a new behavioral pattern and you maybe have a bad day and you make choices counter to that or destructive to that. It's not beating yourself up and then spending the rest of your life complaining about that one day when it all went wrong. It's check in a bit later. How do you feel? Are you ready to get back in the saddle? Okay. Ease yourself back into the saddle. Step into it a bit more easily. Maybe see what was going on inside of you. Was there something showing up inside of you that said, I don't really want to do it because of this? Who knows? But having that relationship with yourself when you can have these conversations, having, like you said, that relationship with yourself where you honor that there's going to be slide back. That's part of the experience. There's going to be fall offs. There's going to be wrong turns. There's going to be little periods of lull, and factoring that into the experience and just not allowing it to pull you off completely, but honoring that it's going to be a part of the journey.
Yeah. And also, you know, using the gym as the metaphor here is some days you're going to be sore or not feel like it or whatever. And like you said, if you need rest, then you rest 1 day, 2 days until you're ready to go again. But sometimes, you know, maybe you go back into the gym and you just drop the weight down, but you do your routine.
Yeah.
You know, you just do it anyway. Not because you're trying to build muscle or you're trying to get stronger, but you just want to keep in the habit, keep the rhythm going, keep the momentum going in that direction rather than in another direction.
Exactly. Yeah. Just like I was saying with the meditation. I mean, some people can do hours and hours and hours a day. Some people do little amounts. What's more important is having that consistent relationship with that part of your experience, having that consistency. If you feel like you just want to do some breathing exercises, or you just want to go and have a meditative walk in nature, find that place of least resistance, but keep the habit of doing that action. Even if you don't feel like it, find the minimal you can do. Like I've got this thing, even like with learning languages, so I'm learning Arabic at the moment. And I set a really low bar for what I need from myself. 5 minutes a day. Yeah. That's all. Yeah. The likelihood that I'm going to be able to genuinely make an excuse with myself about not doing 5 minutes.
Negligible. Yeah.
Very negligible.
Yeah.
And what often happens is I'll do 20 minutes or I'll do 15 minutes or I'll do 10 minutes. But I always do something, just something. So now I've got months now of consistently every day doing a little bit. And every day now, my experience or my expansion in that learning is a little bit more. Every day, I've got a little bit more. I was listening to Tai Lopez, The 67 Steps, and he said that Jerry Seinfeld, his thing was every day he just wanted to make one joke that expanded his craft. Just one joke. He didn't every day try and make an entire new episode of Seinfeld. He didn't try and write a new routine every day. Every day he said one thing, one joke. You know, one punchline. That was all that he expected of himself. But when you expect that minimal, then generally what happens is you end up just, oh, this isn't so bad. I've done a joke. Maybe I might write another one. But if you only feel like doing one punchline, just do one punchline. Really, really, really minimal.
Yeah, Jordan Peterson, I don't know if you've heard of Jordan Peterson. He's all over the YouTube now. Philosopher, professor from. He used to be a professor at in Canada, and he said incremental improvement is unstoppable.
Oh,
And I love that because it's like you think people think, I have to go hard or go home. I have to do 100% or not at all. But when you factor in time, it's like compounding interest.
yeah.
1 little percent, at first it's nothing. It's boring. You don't even notice it. It's like, is this even doing anything? But like anything, like learning how to walk, it leads you to all these things. Imagine all these adults who are walking around just gave up one day and said, oh, this walking thing, it's probably not going to work for me. It's not my cup of tea. All these adults crawling around on the ground.
It's so much easier, Doris.
Like lying down. I'm just waiting for my Uber,
Oh God.
And I know I might sound like I'm teasing people, but I'm doing that to shed light on it. It doesn't have to be hard, it doesn't have to be serious. And it can be a lot of fun. And I think if people really get into it, to do it, not what they're going to get out of it, not what what they're going to manifest, not if they're going to be enlightened, if they just do it because they find enjoyment in it, then, you're not going to see it as work. You're just going to see it as part of your life.
Yeah.
You're going to try all these different things. You're going to be playful like a child, and you're going to learn so quickly, and the experiences are going to come so fast that we'll have to do another session on how to slow the manifestations down. Because there's just too much good shit happening. Yeah. And I don't know what to do with it all.
I can't do it. There's too much manifestation happening.
Yeah. So, I've got too many options. Don't know what to do with them all.
Oh, Lord.
It can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
Yeah. And I find that we've experienced this before in workshops and things like that, is when you've got a group of people doing it, for the sake of doing it, it's a lot of cool stuff happens. A lot of the universe throws new ingredients and materials in the mix that you've never thought of before, none of you. And it's like, well, a whole new color to paint with. Look at this. And you got a bunch of these artists, creating all these new manifestations of things that have never been seen before. It's a lot of fun.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty good place, man. And we've been going an hour pretty much non-stop.
It's not been an hour, has it?
Yeah. Hour and 10 almost.
Wow. Time
keep
flies when
going.
we're having a good old chit-chat, doesn't it?
You got anything you want to, anything pressing that's coming to mind that you want to bring in?
I think really just to remind people just to keep it simple. There's a lot of high-level stuff out there, but just extrapolate the simple things that you find are in alignment with you. Find a place of joy that you can apply that does no harm but adds to the world at large, and go with that. And if you're doing that, you're going to probably have a pretty happy experience and add to the happy experience of those around you.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also, like, if we go back to the training, looking at training and the gym metaphor, it's like over time, you're just going to get stronger. It's even if you do the same practice and you don't really change anything, over time, You're going to get stronger. It's going to get easier. And that sometimes, and this happens to me, is when you sort of plateau, you get that level of boredom with what you've been doing. It's like, well, then you automatically start seeking new things. It's not like you have to go out there and chase it. It's sort of, actually the opposite's true. It sort of just shows up in your world. It says, okay, so you're ready for this next level now. It's like the old kung fu movies, okay, next level. You can move on to the next chamber now. They kick you out of the chamber.
The new scroll, the secret scroll of Shaolin Technique. What are?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Cool, man. Well, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. I thought you were going to be on the European one earlier, but what time is it there where you are?
It's 11 past 10.
Oh, well, appreciate you hanging back and jumping in.
It's been my pleasure, man. I'm definitely been a lot of fun chatting about these concepts. And I was even talking about this today, this whole thing that it's really cool having pockets of space where can freely discuss these things and have the opportunity to just talk about this, because you don't always have, your tribe isn't everywhere, So it's really nice to have the opportunity just to talk about some of these concepts in this really free and open way, learn from you, share thoughts, and have this really nice coherent frequency and just spread a little love and some simple concepts for people to, again, like you said at the beginning, start thinking things a bit differently. And from that, have new experiences themselves.
Yeah. And the other thing I like is, this is so low tech, this is real basic, white wall, half a picture frame, light switch, casual t-shirt, like anyone can do this.
Exactly.
And everyone should be doing this.
Everyone should be doing it. Shine your light. Shine your light.
Yeah. And so I hope that, I'll send you the link when it's ready on YouTube and we can share it out. But I just hope that we can encourage people to just start. And, you don't have to be like the expert of everything. Just share what you're good at. That's good enough. You're going to reach somebody.
Exactly.
And there are people out there that will only be reached by you, no one else. So, we sort of have this little obligation to ourselves and each other to just, share what we can and get out there and practice and encourage and inspire people who are maybe hesitating or sitting in the sideline waiting,
Exactly.
Let's see if these guys get bitten and they're not wearing tinfoil hats, so maybe they're going to get scooped up because they're talking out of line.
Exactly.
Giving the power away, to the potential infinite power to people who aren't responsible to use it.
Exactly.
Actually, in response to that, I don't think you get given. I don't think you get led to the real potent, powerful stuff until you're ready to deal with it anyway. So. And when I say ready, I don't mean like physically ready or smart ready. I mean like mature and emotionally responsible ready to wield that power. It's like in martial arts, they don't teach you the death moves in the first week.
No, you've got to wait for the 6th chamber and that special little scroll.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. When you can take the pebble from the hand, then you'll learn the death moves. But until then, back to the bag, punch the bag. Yeah,
the bag. Same punch, 1,000 punches.
Yeah, that's right. 1-inch punch.
That's it.
It'd save your life one day if you ever, are an assassin and you're getting buried alive. That
or if the aliens are coming
to get you. Yeah. All right, Dan. Cool, man. Thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
We'll have to do this again sometime.
Definitely. This is a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun.
All right, mate. Take it easy. Thanks.
Take care, mate.
Bye.
Take care.